Kyler Murray was at OTAs. I feel shocked. And Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated Monday Morning QB joins me for 2 segments to give his thoughts about the Arizona Cardinals offseason, as well as if the Cardinals are going to re-sign Kyler Murray to the extension before the start of the 2022 season. Let's roll.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. Kyler Murray was at OTAs yesterday. Whoop-de-flip-and-do. I'll talk about that at the end of the show. First, I want to get this guy in here. He's one of the best football minds out there. He's responsible for 100 bold predictions for the 2022 NFL season, 2 of which have to do with Arizona Cardinals players. Staff writer for Sports Illustrated and the Monday Morning QB, Connor Orr, the man, the myth, joins me. Connor, thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so I've been getting guests from a national perspective talking about the Arizona Cardinals over the last 3 weeks or so. People know what I think because I talk about it every day. I think Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim's extensions were premature, to say the least. I think Kyler Murray should have already got a contract extension, regardless of what, the history of the NFL has written up to this point. From how it ended last season to where the Cardinals are now, what grade would you give for the Arizona Cardinals as an entity?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, maybe generously something in the C range. I just think this is a really old roster, and the young players that they've brought in to supplant the older players aren't getting on the field, right? And so I think that there's some concern there with, in my mind, a lot of wasted draft capital over the last few years, squandered draft capital. The Hollywood Brown trade, I just don't know if maybe A.J. Brown, that thing had already been consummated and you weren't making calls on that, but it just, when one happens so close to the other and the discrepancy is such, I think, that kind of looks bad, I think, from a GM standpoint. And just generally, I mean, I agree with you. I probably wouldn't have extended the coach and the GM at this point and through the years that they did. I think that you're going to find in the ensuing years that paying coach salaries is something that owners really don't want to do. Additional coach salaries, fired coach salaries. And so it wouldn't surprise me to see them hang on through a large portion of that extension. And I would just wonder what we've kind of gotten so far that sort of validates that much confidence, when the drafting hasn't been great. You've really been patchworking it with a lot of veteran free agents and older veteran free agents. And so it just doesn't seem like a sustainable roster building plan to me.
At Connor Orr on Twitter, staff writer, SI.com, and the Monday Morning QB, one of the best in the business, joining me here. Locked On Cardinals. I mean, I'm scratching my head because I try to find positivity because I mirror what you say to the letter. I mirror what you say. I feel like, and I equate it to this, him and Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury can put together a great movie trailer, but the movie's not always so great. Cliff Kingsbury's play calling at times is masterful. Where the hell is that? It's, more so. And then Steve Keim, what he did with DeAndre Hopkins, even though that was, rumored to be an owner-to-owner trade and not necessarily Steve Keim's doing. But the J.J. Watt thing is fine. It's changing the just the foundation of this organization. Patrick Peterson on the way out. Like, what I find right now, and I want to ask you about Kyler Murray in a second, is that what former players say about the Cardinals and what former players say about other organizations isn't on the same plane. And maybe I'm too close, but I feel like Patrick Peterson, Calais Campbell would never say anything bad about anybody. Tyrann Mathieu, Chase Edmonds came out on Patrick Peterson's podcast this offseason. Do you see the Cardinals as an organization that's run just egregiously differently from others, or am I too close to the situation and I'm just getting the Stockholm Syndrome, rinse and repeat?
I don't think it's egregiously different. And I think all players need a dose of perspective, right? I mean, we're at this point in the NFL where on one end of the spectrum we had Urban Meyer, and so I mean there are some poorly run franchises in the NFL, right? And I think you're hearing a lot of chatter from Vikings players now. The end of the Mike Zimmer era was a little bit contentious, and I think what the Cardinals have is not bad. I just don't think it's you put normal in air quotes. What is normal now in the NFL? But I don't know how much Cliff Kingsbury is kind of the general there. I think that in good ways and in bad ways, it's a really shared load there. Whether it's Jeff Rodgers or Vance Joseph, I think a lot of those guys are picking up bigger pieces of the load and allowing Cliff to do a lot of the offensive stuff. That works if you're the New Orleans Saints, who have been operating that way for years. But then you need Sean Payton's offense to be able to legitimize it. If you're spending all that time with the offense and you kind of have more of a connection with the offense and the offense is sputtering down the stretch, and if you lose one player, the whole thing falls apart, then what is your offense? And I think that's maybe a little bit of a harsh criticism for Cliff, but he himself said at the combine, I didn't do a good enough job mixing things up when DeAndre went down. And it's like, okay, well, how do you not plan for a receiver that age to miss time? I think it's pretty easy on the other end of the arc at this point.
Yeah, and Connor or SI.com and Monday Morning QB joining you here on Locked On Cardinals. So agreed, I'm harsher on Cliff than maybe I feel like what he hasn't done is elevate Kyler Murray to where other coaches may have through year 3. Kyler Murray has shown so many, I call them, oh my God moments. And we haven't seen the potency that I thought we would have seen of the oh my God moments through 3 years. But that's not to say that Kyler Murray doesn't share some of the blame here, or some of the fault is kind of loosely defined with the downturn of the second half of the season last year. When you look at Kyler Murray from afar, up close, whatever, do you see fringe superstar potential in him, or do you see very good quarterback, hopefully for a long time, barring injury?
I think very good quarterback for a long time, barring injury. And it's interesting. I mean, and I could be dead wrong about this, but I was watching the Rams playoff game, and then I went back and I watched the Rams regular season game. And what stood out to me was the fact that, in an air raid system, and again, we'll put air raid in quotes because the Cardinals aren't really a full-on air raid team. They run air raid principles, right? But you're supposed to get rid of the ball really fast. And Kyler Murray's snap to throw time is what it is, but he just doesn't really hit checkdowns. And I was watching the Rams and the way that they would kind of flood the backfield and get on him. And sometimes, this is not a knock, this is just a general thought, but sometimes I don't think he can see the checkdowns because teams are flooding certain lanes and are making easy throws difficult. I think it was in that playoff game when he ends up the pick 6, right? Yeah. And ends up getting taken down in the end zone. The check down was there, or there was stuff right there immediately. He could have gotten rid of the ball, but I can see where he couldn't have seen that. And so it's interesting to me that I don't know if they're just little pieces of that offense that can't work exactly the way that you need it to, and that needs an adjustment on Cliff. I mean, I remember when talking to Warren Moon about this with Russell Wilson, on bootlegs, they just needed to do stuff differently, and he needed to practice stuff differently. Remember they would do kind of the little loft checkdowns where they would kind of float them instead. This might be that kind of situation. I don't know, but there does seem to just be that little bit of, Kyler's doing a lot of it on his own, and I think he's just got to work a little bit harder than other quarterbacks sometimes.
All right, that was the first part of my interview with Connor Orr. Second part coming up after the break here on Locked On Cardinals. First, BlueNile.com. There's a couple of things I don't know about. One is cars when I talk about Rock Auto, and 2 is jewelry, things like that. Whether you're ready to pop the question, you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Okay? There's something special about Blue Nile that I talk about that I reiterate. If you're looking for fine jewelry but having trouble, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. So if you're looking for a diamond shape, a specific diamond shape or size or clarity or whatever, and you don't know what the hell you're doing, they've got people you can chat with. They've got people you can chat with 24/7. That's the Blue Nile difference. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement rings, which is huge. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, second segment, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. I'm your host, Alex Clancy. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Before I get back to Connor Orr, we have an important favor to ask you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you for your help. Now, on to the second part of my interview with Connor Orr from Sports Illustrated Monday Morning QB. Yeah, and before I get to the 100 bowl prediction for the 22, great read on SI.com, and you can get Sports Illustrated in print forms. You can still get it in magazine form still.
Right.
We'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to go to the text for that. One last thing about Kyler, because he's fascinating. He's polarizing. What made Drew Brees great was his ability to step up in the pocket. He's the same size as Kyler, maybe an inch and a half taller, whatever. I mean, we're not going to go to height here. Like, not everybody's Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Josh Allen. Brock Osweiler had more balls batted down in his year in Houston than Kyler Murray did his last year at Oklahoma. So it's not always height. Do you see Kyler Murray's fadeaway throws, the NFL's catching up to it now? Is that what we're seeing here? And his not inability, when you have Rodney Hudson at center, you're going to get the depth to be able to step up. And is that a glaring thing, or am I looking at it too closely with his inability to really step up? Because once he plants his foot, he's got a cannon. And it just seems like when he's backpedaling and doing the cute tosses to get picked, that's kind of where we've, kind of run into a little bit of concern for him.
I think I'm giving all quarterbacks this year the benefit of the doubt because you saw the proliferation of that Fangio cover 2 shell stuff where every team is dropping 7 guys into coverage. And that was not the case a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And so you needed, I think that's why the Bengals did so well. You just basically needed a quarterback to hang back there and make perfect throws with such regularity. And I think that's what ended up saving the Bengals. But I don't think that the league is catching up to it. I think that they've just really given up on blitzing because so many quarterbacks are so athletic. So they're saying, what's the difference? Why am I throwing extra guys back there? Why don't I make them beat me with their arm? And so I'm giving all quarterbacks, OCs, a pass this past year. I don't think anybody really saw the expansion of the defense coming as aggressively as it did. The Cardinals are one of the few teams in the NFL that are still blitzing. I think there's like 3 or 4 teams that are blitzing above 33% in the NFL. And so, I think if we see the same kind of struggles from certain quarterbacks that we saw last year as we do this year, then I think we can start talking about, okay, this person doesn't do this well. This person doesn't do this well.
100 bowl predictions for the 2022 NFL season. This is a fun-ass article. I think that's a technical term. It's a fun-ass article to read. There's something for everybody, okay? And I was reading through it when it was posted 2 days ago, and there were 2 interesting Arizona Cardinals ones, and one of which is surrounding J.J. Watt. Let's talk about that secondarily. First one is that the Kyler Murray is going to get an extension before the start of the 2022 season. Now, do you on the bold meter of the 100, just, portions of them are purely insanity related, which is incredible. But it's like, you know what? If that happens, it's the NFL. The NFL's turned into the NBA. Just pretty much in every, the NBA had this much of a lead in the NFL for this much of the year with free agency, and now that's obviously gone with player empowerment and everything. Do you think that's crazy that he would get a contract extension before the season starts? And do you think he should get 280, which is what some people are expecting he's going to get?
I don't know what other choice they have if you're the Cardinals, right?
Yeah.
Because, what are your other options, right? You've signed the GM through 2027 who hired the air raid coach who requires the quarterback to run the system. And I'm not saying there aren't other air raid quarterbacks out there or other quarterbacks that you could teach air raid. I mean, you could go get Baker Mayfield if you want to make a point, but is that really what you want to do? And so I think that, I mean, just from me looking at it from 30,000 feet, I think Steve Keim has sold Michael Bidwell this plan, and I think it doesn't work without each of the three of them in place. And I think that right now he's playing it tough, and again, I think some GMs are better than others. I think he's terrible at that. He was bad at it with Josh Rosen. With Baker that was the worst bungled trade attempt I've seen since Baker Mayfield right now. Right. And so, I mean, they telegraphed that pick from day one, and then left themselves no choice but to dump the asset. And so, I think they just have to. I don't think they have any choice. And I think Kyler knows that. And I think that he's got a really smart agent. And I think that they're banking on the Cardinals folding and then them getting together and making it look like nobody folded, which is how these things work.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point because it's set up to be as such. I mean, as you mentioned, and the thing that Steve Keim, the one where it's like the almost 100% pivot on everything that I've ever said about him before was if you could turn Josh Rosen into DK Metcalf, and they could have. And that's the big one where you pass on him, you draft an FCS guy out of UMass who led the nation in everything receiving and hasn't seen the field since a 2 touchdown in 3 games span or 3 touchdown in 2 games span 2 years ago. So that's interesting. I hope, and you're right, they don't have a choice. And when you're dating somebody, male or female, and everybody else is in their DMs like the rest of the NFL for Kyler Murray, that should tell you something. Pay the kid, move on, and hopefully all this is going to work. Now, the last one is really fun. Like, this is football nerds like you and me and millions of other people on the planet. When it rings true to Arizona like this one did, where it's like veteran comes in, then veteran wins somewhere else. Terrell Suggs won a damn Super Bowl with Kansas City after playing with the Cardinals for 10 minutes. J.J. Watt will play all 17 games and record, what was it exactly? He will play all 17 games. He'll be traded mid-season to play with a contender and a chance to win a Super Bowl. And I'm butchering the exact verbiage, but when I saw that, I'm like, holy crap. I texted you right after I read that. I'm like, so what are the iterations of that? Where does this, like, you're like, okay, J.J. Watt, like, where did you come from 0 to 1? Where was the 0 to 1 jump with that one?
Well, I just think that I think he's got one good healthy season left in him. I really do. I think he's been unlucky for such a long period of time, and I think he's smart enough to realize, these are the tweaks I can make. And some guys just get that one good last season. I mean, we've seen that with a couple of good generational pass rushers before. And I think if you're Arizona, I don't think they're going to have a great year this year. I just don't. And I said that last year. So I'll admit that I had them going 5-12 in my preseason predictions. So I'll wear that. But I kind of see, by the way, I don't think I was wrong necessarily because they were one of the luckiest teams in the NFL last year consistently. I don't think that Kyler, I don't think we realize how incredible some of his stats were, like his success on 50-50 balls, like stuff that just doesn't always go your way, right? But went their way a lot last year. I just don't think that happens again. But anyway, I'm just saying if you played last season over again, they might go closer to 5-12. But anyway, I don't think this is a great team. I think it's a pretty good team in an excellent division, arguably the best division in football. I think if you're going to get to week 6 or week 7 and you have the chance to flip this guy, I think you got to do it. Not only from veterans, I think the rules are different. I think he can go in there just like he did in Houston and say, hey, listen, let's get me out of here. I want to play with my brother for 6 games, whatever it is, right. And I don't think it'll be Pittsburgh, but I think the rules are different for veteran guys. I think the rules are different for GMs who need to show that they can get something for nothing at some point. And I think all that just comes to a head. That's kind of how I saw that coming down.
Staff writer, Sports Illustrated, Monday Morning QB, Connor Orr, the 100 most insane possibilities. Whatever, I mean, it's such a fun read. And I'm going to read this for everybody out there. Quote, tell people to subscribe to a print magazine. We won't steal your identity online. From the one and only Connor Orr.
Yes.
Listen to him.
You can just mail us a check and we'll send you back a magazine, a year's worth of magazines. That's a great deal.
Those were my favorite Tuesdays, was Sports Illustrated Tuesdays. And you had a stack of them on your bookshelf, still go in through them, got the swimsuit, which is a little bonus. And you just, it was great times. Making Sports Illustrated cover was like my childhood growing up. You can still get it. If you can't trust that face, I don't know what you can trust. Connor Orr, Sports Illustrated. Thanks so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Man, that dude's good. That was so fun. That was Connor Orr, at Connor Orr on Twitter, Sports Illustrated, Monday Morning QB, 100 bold predictions for the 2022 NFL season. He had the Arizona Cardinals trading J.J. Watt midseason, and he had the Cardinals signing Kyler Murray to his contract extension before the start of the 2022 season. The latter, Kyler Murray, showed up to OTAs yesterday. Whoop-de-frickin-do. I'm going to talk about it in the final segment next. First, rockauto.com. You know that I know nothing about cars. If you've listened to anything in my life through Locked On Cardinals, you would know I know nothing about cars. That's why rockauto.com is so important to me. I don't want to go to a chain storefront. Not only do I not want to get upcharged 30, 40, 50, 100% for parts that I could get online at rockauto.com without the upcharge, I don't want to have those awkward conversations like, hey, man, how do I do this? Where do I find this for my car? Because I don't know jack about it. That's why rockauto.com got me covered. Family-owned business. They've been online for 20 years. They treat you like family. They don't upcharge family. When you're here, they'll take care of you. Their prices are reliably low. They don't have to deal with the shelving issues that sometimes chain storefronts have. Go to rockauto.com, right? Logged on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts a car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, final segment, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Hope you enjoyed the interview with Connor Orr from SI.com. I just ask people questions, and they give their thoughts on the Arizona Cardinals. It hasn't been extremely positive regarding this offseason for the Cardinals. Those aren't my words. Those are theirs. They are smarter than I am. That's why I have them on my show. But it's just interesting to see that there seems to be some sort of, what's the lack of fluid? Clunky disconnect during this offseason, according to some, national media members, Mina Kimes, Michael Jr., Matt Money Smith, and Connor had kind of the same thing to say, where it's just like, we don't really know what's going on. Veteran team, the draft hasn't been great, but that's not to say this offense isn't going to be fun, and it's going to be on the shoulders of Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray, while missing the beginning of voluntary OTAs, was there out on the field yesterday, hucking it out, Trey McBride, etc. I told you this wasn't a big deal. It's still not a big deal. The leadership thing, okay. So what? Him not being there for the beginning of voluntary OTAs could, it could strengthen either side of the argument. One, oh, he's not a leader. Oh, he's not a leader. Or, yeah, he's in a contract negotiation. Would you show up? It strengthens either side. What this shows is it was much ado about nothing. It's going to be swept under the rug, not in a way where it needs to be revisited later. It's that it never should have been brought up really to begin with, but it happened, so we had to discuss it. Others took way more credence into it than I did and held more weight into it. I talked about it for 6 minutes because I had to address it. I don't think it was a big deal at all. And obviously it's showing that it's not. Just because he's not a rah-rah guy, and just because he was demonstrative on the sidelines when things were going wrong last year, doesn't mean he's a bad leader. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything. Okay? Does he have some leadership qualities that he needs to grow, via that he has to get better at? Absolutely. I think Kyler Murray is less at fault than the front office and Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think Kyler Murray is devoid of fault with what's gone on the last two halves of the last two seasons. He's still got growing to do. He's still got, he's got his football game needs to mature more. And we heard from Connor, things need to be figured out. Absolutely. But the Cardinals should 100% pay him. He showed up. That's it. That's all we have to talk about. Alex Lindsay, Locked On Cardinals. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's a bunch of great interviews on there. Yeah. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL. You could check me out today with Tyler Rowland on the Locked On NFL YouTube channel, as well as free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Alex Lindsay, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.